With the English version of Bless expected sometime later this year and the Japanese version already going into closed beta on the 28th, I've noticed that the majority of questions and concerns are about whether or not the game will have pay-to-win elements, what they're doing to improve the combat, and a few other concerns regarding localization and optimization of the game. So far, Bless's publisher for the Western audience, Aeria Games, has only given small amounts and very vague information and updates, so there's a lot of people left in the dark. I've been playing both the Korean and Russian versions for a while, so I'll show you exactly what they are like in terms of the cash shop, what they've done to update combat fluidity, optimization, and more, as well as tell you what I think Aeria Games needs to do in order for me to want to play their version of Bless and for the game itself to succeed in the Western market. First and foremost, I personally have not played any of Aeria's games, so I can't say much about what I think of them as a company, but I have read enough about their many games with shady pay-to-win business models to get a pretty good picture. They have published other Asian games and turned their cash shops very pay-to-win, so I fully understand the concern for Bless being published by them. I will say though that it would be fairly difficult for Aeria Games to make Bless pay to win without eliminating half of the gameplay or actually editing cash shop items and giving them stats. What I mean by this is the only items they can put in the cash shop that would really make any difference in PvP and PvE are actual gear pieces and runes. Nothing else would really increase their chances of winning. A big part of the game later on consists of trying to get better versions of these two things, so if they put them in the cash shop we can say goodbye to endgame, and I definitely would not touch their version of Bless. That being said, as far as I can tell, the Korean cash shop is a mile away from pay to win. Let me show you why. On the first page we have the beginner's package. It doesn't show what's in it on the Korean version for some reason, maybe due to my outdated translator, but on Russia it has items to help new players level up. Nothing that would give you any advantage when fighting another player. The rest of the items on this page are costumes, mounts, and pets they offer for a limited time. I'll talk about all of those individually in a minute. On the next tab we have rune converters. Before I go over it, runes are your basic gems type of items that you put on armors and weapons to give them extra stats. I've only played around with this a bit, so my knowledge on it is limited, but if my Google Translate reading skills are on point today, if you reroll a rune without this item, it's fully RNG what you get. And if you reroll with this item, it's still RNG, but you have a higher chance of getting the rune type depicted on the converter. Considering that you still need to get the actual runes through gameplay, and you'll still have to deal with RNG when converting, I feel that these items are not anything to worry about in terms of paying to win. The next tab has all the cosmetic items. There's no RNG involved when buying anything from here, you get whatever's in the box. Some costumes do have stats, but the stats on them do not affect damage, defense, or any stat that matters in PvP or PvE. The stats are only for convenience, like movement speed in water or movement speed when you're trying to go back to your corpse. This is what I meant when I said that Aeria Games would have to edit items in the cash shop and give them new stats to make Bless pay to win. The next tab has items that I actually haven't played with yet, since everyone tells me it's a waste of Lumina, but from what I can gather, they're active consumable items to be used on players and monsters. They don't do a lot of damage, and nothing on here will make a guy overpowered, and also all of these items can be obtained in the game through crafting. These tactic scrolls are basically bundles of skill books you can buy so you don't have to spend gold buying them at the trainer shop. These are more of a convenience thing, so you get a lot of skills right away to help you level up instead of having to go back to the trainer NPCs after every level. Not at all necessary since you will be able to get every skill book without any issue. What you get from the next page are fairly high level buff pets. All pets in the game, including ones not in the cash shop, only give progression related buffs. This means either a boost in experience or gold you get when you kill things. They don't give any buff that could increase your chances of winning against any opponent. They're not like the Lava Spark battle pet in Arcade that gave 2k HP and tripped your target, which was actually put behind a paywall of a $150 pack. The pets in the shop are generally not available in the world to tame, but the effects they give are the same as regular ones in the world, only the looks are exclusive to the shop. The score shop lets you buy currencies in the game that are used for buying materials, toys, and other items of that sort, most of which are either for convenience or for fun like these toys, pets, and minions. Now you might be thinking, you essentially can pay for materials for your gear. Well, the thing is, these points are very easy to get in the game through gameplay, and the crafting materials are also in abundance around the world to gather or buy with gold from other NPCs. As far as I know, there's nothing on here that's gonna let a paying player have a huge advantage over someone who doesn't pay. At most, paying for the points saves you some time gathering materials in the world. The last tab is filled with the convenience items like peace declaration to avoid being PK'd for 10 minutes, teleport consumables so you don't have to use Dragon Tamer, and scrolls to let you save more skill builds. Personally, I'm okay with everything in the Korean cash shop. There's nothing I can buy that directly increases my stats or give me an advantage to win against an opponent any more than a guy who doesn't use Lumina. The majority of the items are for cosmetics, convenience, and other things that can easily be obtained through gameplay. On top of that, I forgot to mention that cash shop currency is obtainable through the main quest line in great quantities, and also from daily quests in endgame. Aeria Games has said that the plan for Bless is for monetized items to be mainly for convenience or vanity, the keyword being mainly. I very much hope they'll go through with that and stick very close to the original Korean shop as Russia did. I take it pretty much as a promise and will not play this game otherwise. Though Russia did add a few things to their cash shop like crafting materials, but they're extremely cheap and don't make any difference at all. Still a bit of a worry there though, since as with any other Asian MMO coming to the West, they'll likely add or change some things in the cash shop. Let's just hope they don't mess it up. The second most brought up topic for Bless is the combat system, a lot of which are mostly complaints on both the current tab targeting and action combat modes being sluggish and dull, especially with the way the skills are designed. For example, caster classes often have to be stationary with long casting times. In comparison to a lot of the recent PvP focused MMOs like Blade and Soul, BDO, and Arcade, Bless's combat feels incredibly dated. Aeria Games did say that the combat is one of the big things being worked on for the English version, however many people seem to think they're going to completely rework the combat system, since they didn't go into detail about the improvements they're making at all, and we haven't heard anything about it since. It's possible they're doing a huge rework, however it just isn't plausible. Based on the recent updates they've been doing to the combat in Korea, it looks to me like they're just doing small improvements to make the combat smoother and feel less dated. They did adjustments on the sensitivity of auto-targeting and added a target lock-on feature, but nothing on making casters less stationary or any of the more serious issues that can dramatically change how the combat feels. I honestly cannot imagine they'll make enough updates to it for the English release to change people's opinions on the combat. The best thing I can think of is that they'll add more of those quality of life user interface things like target locking. They're also working on the optimization, which does have an effect on combat as well in terms of large-scale PvP, but I'll talk about that in a bit. My advice is that if you really dislike the combat to the extent that you don't want to play the game, it might be good to start looking at other games instead. Personally, I don't mind the combat too much, since I grew up playing these type of not so complicated combat MMORPG, and the game itself, not just the combat alone, has a pretty nostalgic feel to it. The other big thing that will be needed for Bless to last more than 3 weeks in the Western market is that the proper version is released. We cannot be given an extremely old and poorly optimized version like Russia had for their first couple of months. For a long time in the Russian version, the gameplay was painful at best. The North American and European players will not tolerate it and simply move on to something else, especially those playing in big groups that will experience the large-scale combat. We need at the very minimum close to what Russia has now in terms of optimization. I really feel that first impressions matter a lot so the game can have a good player base. They have said that the content found in the Western version will be very close to that of the Korean version, which will be one of the big factors of whether or not the game will stay alive in the coming months after it's released. I also feel that the Mystic class needs to be in the game when it launches in the West, but it wouldn't necessarily be a breaking point if Mystic is not in right away. I just feel that a good number of healers would not want to play the typical able to tank paladin and rather have the option to play the cleric type of healer. As for localization, the Western version needs to have everything voice acted like the Russian version has, otherwise it's gonna turn off a lot of players like what happened to Revelation. The game's progression is a lot more story based than most games, so it's gonna make a big difference if we have to listen and watch everything in Korean or Russian. Servers also need to be compact from the beginning, since a lot of the fun in the game is driven by player interaction, especially open world PvP. The one thing that turns off a lot of people trying out the Russian and Korean Korean versions at the moment is that they hardly even see people around the world to party up and do dungeons with or kill in the open world. The fact is the hype for the game is not as big as it once was. If it was coming out 2 years ago, I'd understand more than 1 or 2 servers, but even the Korean version has had to merge a few times and now only has 2 servers. Blast also needs to be optimized server side since it's a fairly PvP heavy game, and the skills of the game is set up so you rely on timing dodges for invincibility and using reaction skills well to change the outcome of a fight. It cannot have 1 to 3 second delay. Many players like myself would just get super frustrated and simply leave. I know this because this was an issue in the early days of Trion's Arcade when their servers couldn't handle the player base, and it ended up costing them a lot of players in the beginning. From what I've heard, Aeria Games has a history of having laggy servers, even when it comes to their bigger games like Echo of Soul, so I am a little worried about that. Hopefully they'd understand what is necessary when handling a game like this, which is a bit higher than the usual games they publish. As for Bless's development, I hope that Neowiz focuses on improving and updating the already existing systems in the game, like the currently horrid and outdated user interface, as well as add new content to keep people playing after doing their dungeons and world boss events. The game lacks variety when it comes to world activities to do. There's no trade runs or housing or fishing. Not saying the game needs those ones specifically, I just feel the game needs more of those type of content in general out in the open world. At the moment, most of the updates on the Korean server are just more dungeon content and cosmetic updates, which I feel is not what the game actually needs to improve. I also feel that Bless needs to come out fairly soon in the West, hopefully sometime between fall and early 2018. It's just that the game is getting older and older, has been pushed back enough times already, and is having less and less appeal to the Western market, as the numbers of people switching to MOBA and team-based FPS type of games gets higher every day. I wouldn't necessarily say it's missed its window of opportunity quite yet, especially since there's only a few good MMORPG coming out this year. There's not too much competition, so I feel it has a decent chance of snagging a player base the same way Revelation did, which is good since the game does require well-populated servers for players to have a robust and interactive gameplay. While I am excited for Bless to come out in the West, where I'll hopefully be able to PvP well, I'm gonna keep my expectations fairly low because of the circumstances the game is in, and the many things we don't know quite yet. I also want to note that I urge everyone not to overhype and to watch the game carefully, especially with how this publisher handles things like beta phases and what they offer in things like Founders Packs. I still recommend the game in its Korean state, but I will hold off on making any recommendations to play the Western version until I've experienced any sort of beta phase or see anything solid on the version we will get. It's a little bit worrying that we're not getting a whole lot of information and updates directly from the publisher, and the little info that we are getting, we have to rely on third-party sources like MMO news sites doing interviews with their staff. I can only guess that soon might mean later than I originally expected. To those that are set on trying the game now, I suggest trying it on the Korean version instead of the Russian if you can. If you are going on the Russian version, just know that it's not as optimized as KR and there isn't as much content available. The Korean version is also pretty much Christmas every other week, cause they give out free stuff like costumes and flying mounts. The community for Bless is fairly small and it's still growing at the moment, so I highly suggest anyone who's thinking of playing to join the Discord community. See if you can find people to play with or maybe learn a thing or two from some Bless veterans. I've been playing a ton of Bless in the past month, so I've got more than a few videos coming up in the coming weeks. Do consider subscribing if you'd like to see more Bless content like this one.